Welcome to the New Earth Entrepreneurs Podcast, where innovation meets sustainability. Building a better tomorrow today. We interview changemakers and visionary leaders redefining success for the planet. Here you'll find inspiring stories and solutions that matter. Welcome to the New Earth Entrepreneurs.
Welcome to the New Earth Entrepreneurs Show. Today's guest is Ryan Smith, founder and CEO of Recyclops. Ryan is on a mission to make recycling accessible and impactful through innovative landfill diversion programs. Under his leadership, Recyclops has successfully diverted over 1 million pounds of waste each month and continues to expand its services across the U.S. Today we'll explore Ryan's journey, the challenges of fundraising in a tough economy, and his vision for a more sustainable future. Welcome, Ryan.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, pleasure to have you. And I'm excited to learn more about Recyclops and the incredible impact that you're making in sustainability. Start with an overview. Recyclops focuses on landfill diversion programs for communities and brands. Could you share more about what inspired you to start Recyclops and how the company has evolved over time?
Yeah. So I started Recyclops in 2013 and technically incorporated 2014, but the first idea of Recyclops came in 2011. So I was going to college and I had just taken a 2-year break. I'd done my freshman year and then I took a 2-year break and served a church mission in Russia, of all places, and didn't see a lot of recycling efforts happening in Russia, but that wasn't shocking to me. But then when I moved back to the US, I moved into kind of an apartment off campus. I'd previously lived on campus, and the university had a recycling program, pretty robust. But when I moved off campus into some random crappy apartment complex, there was no recycling. I remember I bought a bottle of Sprite on campus in a vending machine, and I finished it as I walked home from school and from classes, and I went to go put it in the recycling. I just moved into this new apartment, and I was like, oh, there's no blue bin, there's no recycling in our unit. I'll go just take it straight to the recycling dumpster that's outside. Walk over there, no recycling. And I couldn't believe it. I just was like, what? How is this a thing? How am I in a college town in the United States of America and there's no recycling? I just thought at first it was I must have moved into the crappiest apartment ever, which wasn't not true. It was not the greatest, but it was great for me. And but I started poking my head around. I'd go hang out with friends. I'd go on dates, and before I go up to someone's apartment, I'd poke my head in the dumpster enclosure. And what I saw was consistent: no recycling. Started doing research to see hey, was this unique to where this one city? I knew this is in Utah, and I grew up in Utah, and I had recycling mandatory in the city I grew up in. I knew it wasn't a state thing because I experienced it, something different in the state. But started wondering, what is this city I'm in, and quickly learned, nope, not a state thing, not a city thing. It's an apartment thing. If you live in an apartment globally, chances are you don't have recycling pickups. Maybe there's community drop-off somewhere, maybe. And in the US, my best estimate is something like 60% of apartments don't have recycling. So the majority don't have recycling, which is about 16 million homes. It's 16 million homes. That's a lot. So that had the first idea and wrote it down as a note. I kept a little idea log. I'd had someone suggest that if you're interested in entrepreneurship, keep a log of ideas you have. Wrote it down, talked to a couple people about it, and didn't do anything about it. And then 2 years later, I was doing an internship for a startup in Brazil, actually. So I was living in Brazil. Sao Paulo, where I was living, actually, is pretty robust recycling. Sao Paulo is honestly pretty impressive with their recycling efforts, which it's the biggest city in the Americas. And so not shocking that they would have good infrastructure for that. But I decided, you know what? I want to go for this. I saw that I was working for this startup. I got exposure to some entrepreneurs who were, 10 years senior than me, and just saw that they were smart, but they weren't that special. I don't know how to say that in they were just normal dudes.
Mm-hmm.
They were just, it was the difference between them and me was that they did something. They started it, and I was doing nothing. And it was you know what? If that's it, then I just need to start something. And so kind of that combination is what led me to, start looking at, opened up my idea log, started looking at the ideas, was really drawn to the recycling because I felt that pain very personally, and loved the idea of capitalism for good, the idea of entrepreneurship for good, that for-profit businesses can do good in the world and they should do good in the world. And that concept really resonated with me. And this business was just such a natural way to do that. And so I said, you know what, let's go for it. And started focusing just on apartments, which is not what we do today. But the concept is the same. You know, you have really the focus was, apartments, but it was underserved recycling markets. It was places where recycling was hard, and not just recycling, sustainability. I think we've kind of brought into my view beyond just, pure recycling to reuse, composting, landfill diversion as a whole, circular economies. And yeah, so it's kind of fun to see, that's where it started. And, took about a year to get my first contract, got my first dollar earned there. I went to the bank, deposited everything in the first check that I got, except for withdrew $1 and put that in that little frame. And here we are.
I love it. I love it. I'm excited to hear about how the things have progressed to today, serving underserved communities and urban centers. How does your approach to recycling address the needs of both the underserved communities and urban centers nowadays?
Yeah, so started with these apartments and big problem there, but struggled to figure out how to grow that business. Initially did more of a traditional waste management approach that's kind of asset heavy. So you have equipment that you need to do this, and you need trucks in every market, and it makes it hard, especially as a young entrepreneur who doesn't have a lot of capital. How do you scale that? How do you make that happen? And so I started experimenting, ran the business like that for a number of years. But so probably in around 2017, 2018, started experimenting with other models that I felt like I could scale better. Went out and bought a couple garbage trucks, put a bunch of dumpsters at 100 locations for cardboard only recycling. I saw that cardboard, there was a lot of like restaurants, for example, that weren't recycling at all. And if they were recycling, they had a mixed recycling dumpster, but the only thing they were putting in there was cardboard. I thought, man, that's going to a sorting facility. You're like, there's some efficiency that's being lost here. What if I just took straight cardboard? That's all they really have anyways, and skip the sorting facility and monetize the cardboard. Started doing that. Recycling economies crashed with China's national sword policy, where most of the US recycling was being shipped abroad to China. We've all seen things that say made in China. Well, you need to make things out of something. Recycling was a major feedstock for that. But China didn't want to be the world's dump, understandable. And so the US got cut off, and recycling commodity prices, the value of cardboard, tanked overnight. But all my expenses stayed the same. So it was a little frightening, pretty dang frightening. So I started having to adapt and look and saying, hey, where else can I do this? I'd been exposed to a family-run business and actually had taken it over. But it was basically, there was a more kind of para-urban, outskirts of urban center, like town, that didn't have recycling. And this family had said, hey, the city's not doing this, let's do it ourselves. So they were charging their neighbors $10 a month, driving around with a Suburban and a trailer and picking up people's recycling from circular, the circle bins. And I thought that was so fascinating. One of the realizations I had very, very quickly was, just like my apartment wasn't unique in not having recycling, there's no way this community, this city is unique. Started doing research and saw that it was not. Something like 34 million single-family homes don't have access to basic recycling collection. 34 million homes. You combine that with the 16 million apartments, we're talking 50 million households. There's only like 130, 140 million homes in the US. Like 50 of 140, or whatever the most recent census says, like, man, that's a big problem. And so saw that this single-family home, started trying to figure out, how do I tackle that? How do I tackle that? And really, as the cardboard kind of side of the business was dying, and I was kind of drowning in some debt associated with owning garbage trucks and dumpsters and all of that, trying to figure out, how do I not go bankrupt? I realized that maybe there was a way to do this, to replicate this little recycling program that this family had started. They had been doing it just like a Suburban and a trailer. Like, what could I get someone to do it in their own vehicle, in a small vehicle, kind of Uberize this? One of the big challenges was like, recycling is messy and kind of everywhere. But I had a sister who lived in Manhattan, and I had been there a bunch of times and seen how recycling was handled there, which was cardboard was bundled and flattened and kind of stacked, and the other things, the smaller, the bottles, the cans, whatever, they were bagged. I thought, it's kind of counterintuitive to think, using plastic bags to enable recycling, but if I had a plastic bag, if this was all bagged, self-contained, cardboard's easy enough. It's, not as messy. But if everything else was self-contained, anyone in any vehicle could pick this up, and I could Uber this. Like, I could get my own little Uber driver fleet and, figure this out. And so I started experimenting with it. Went from one community, experimented with one city in March, did our first pilot like test, like, oh, can I hire some random people to go and do this and pick this up in their own truck? And what does that look like? Did a test in December at Christmas time, the week of Christmas of 2017, maybe 2018. And then in March, I think it must have been 2017, I could be a year off here, but March of 2018, launched in my first full community doing that. And by October, we were in like 15 or 18 communities doing that. And then we're off to the races. 2021 brought on some venture capital, reached $1 million in revenue in March of 2020. And I thought I'd already told myself, hey, when I reach $1 million in revenue, I'm going to go pursue outside investment. Unfortunately, March of 2020 was not the ideal time to go get outside investment. So had to figure out how to manage between March of 2020 and March of 2021 when we ended up doing things, but wanted to kind of keep that traction, keep showing that positive movement so that we could attract that venture capital. And I was able to do that, and then use that money between 2021 and 2022. We grew from 5 states to 30 states in 18 months and grew rapidly. And that led to businesses starting to contact us and say, hey, you're solving these challenging issues with recycling in rural America and these recycling deserts, these places where there's no infrastructure. Could you help us solve our unique recycling challenge? And started doing partnerships with like Imperfect Foods. They were our first one, and they wanted to help recycling these bubble wrap insulated liners that in ice packs that they were using for their cold chain grocery delivery. Our big focus was the insulated liners, and so we built a national program with them on that, and then had a company reach out to us. This is probably still my favorite program we run. Company that makes plant-based diapers. So your average diaper has as much, like Huggies, Pampers, whatever, has as much plastic as 2 plastic water bottles. And so a number of brands out there have said, hey, let's make a cleaner diaper. Let's make a diaper without so much plastic. And one of those brands is a brand called Diaper, DYPER. And they said, hey, what if we took this like a level up and did more than just a better diaper for the landfill, but what if we kept it out of the landfill? A plant-based diaper, all it's going to go do in landfill is rot and release greenhouse gases. Like the plastic's going to sit there for eternity. The plant-based one's going to rot and release greenhouse gases. It's like, oh man, it's kind of a lose-lose. But if you can compost it, you're sequestering the carbon into the soil, not releasing all those greenhouse gases. Pretty interesting thought. So you have to build a product that can do it, which they did. Then you needed to find the right compost facilities. There aren't very many of these because it has a human waste, which is regulated naturally, human biomass. And then you have to somehow get it from a customer's house. So they initially did a mail-back program with TerraCycle, and it was just too expensive. Everything about it was just too expensive. It's mailing heavy things that are bulky. It's really expensive. And so they were trying to find a better way to do this. And it was not just expensive, but it was a really bad customer experience. You had to hold on to your dirty diapers for a month. And you think that's maybe the worst part. The worst part probably was then having to take that box of a month's worth of dirty diapers and drop it off on a counter at FedEx. It's like uncomfortable, not a great customer experience. They reached out to us, cold outreach. And reached out to my older brother, knew someone who worked there, saw something and reached out to him and said, hey, can you introduce me to your younger brother? They introduced us, started talking to the CEO, and he said, hey, could you pick up dirty diapers from doorsteps in major metros and aggregate it locally and then ship it to specialty composters and help us find more specialty composters? And we said, dirty diapers, I don't know. We're used to doing residential pickups, but dirty diapers. But we said, let's give it a shot. So I went and did the first round of pickups myself, and it wasn't too bad. I stored a pallet worth of dirty diapers in my garage for 6 months to see what would happen. Shockingly, not that bad. Didn't smell much worse than having your trash can in there. I was like, who knew? The diapers breathe a lot more than the plastic-based diapers, and so the smell kind of dissipates and they dry out, and it's not a big deal, frankly. So we said, okay, we think we can do it. And so now we pick up dirty diapers from doorsteps everywhere from LA to New York City. But we have the capability to kind of do these residential collection programs, but not all of them are residential collections. Some of them are big warehouse programs. It's just this idea of there's a waste stream that's right now landfill bound. What's standing in between it and, a better solution is just someone connecting the right dots. And we end up being that dot connector. We find the right people to move the material, whether that be a gig economy or it be something larger scale. And we find the right homes for materials and do any sort of pre-process needs to get baled or compacted or whatever. Before then, we'll figure that out. And so about half of our business is, the direct consumer residential recycling programs. And then the other half is these enterprise programs where we're helping businesses achieve their waste diversion goals. Sometimes that's reaching all the way down to the consumer. Sometimes that's at a manufacturing site. So, yeah.
I mean, since you've talked about the number of households dealing with the non-access to recycling, I mean, it really highlights just how important the problem is that you're solving. And I appreciate the innovative and through the problems that have come up with the cardboard and China not taking the recycling, COVID, just to see that adaptation of how to pivot in these times of challenge. I think that's a kind of one of those common entrepreneurial themes or motifs that happen of when the struggles come on, how do you adapt, how do you handle and change or not. So I appreciate getting to hear your story of how you have adapted. I've got a list of questions just to kind of highlight some of these successes, challenges. So maybe we go a little quick fire on some of these next ones just to cover, get a little more of this kind of diverting over 1 million pounds of waste per month is an incredible milestone. What strategies or partnerships have been key to achieving this level of impact?
Yeah, really, the gig economy has been an incredible tool for us because it's enabled us to rapidly expand. And so I would say that has been one strategy that, it comes with its challenges, certainly, but one of the big advantages is your ability to reach a lot of places fast. And then partnership, we have tried to be so collaborative with everyone that we can. And I think that has really been helpful. And like we look at this and like I mentioned, TerraCycle and diaper, like I think sometimes TerraCycle gets a bad rap from some people, but they've done some pretty incredible things out there. Do I wish there had been no mistakes along the way for anyone working in sustainability? Of course, but like, hey, how do we collaborate with these people? Like, we don't have enemies in this space. We don't really, we don't have competitors. We have collaborators. We're all trying to solve these big problems, and I think approaching it in that way and looking at this like, hey, how do we all work together? And how do we have, strong relationships with other companies so that we can all solve these things together? I think that's been a big piece for us. I have a ton of respect for Ridwell and for TerraCycle and for Roadrunner Recycling and for people who are doing things in this space. And it's like, are all of them doing it exactly the way I would do it? No, I'm doing it the way I would do it. And that's why I have my company and they have theirs, and we're all working together to make a difference, and we all have our strengths and weaknesses, and I think that idea of this abundance mentality is really key for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Partnerships and I love the way you've worked gig economy into your modeling as well. I'll note too, I've had a conversation with a fellow just recently. He acquired this product called Bounty Gel that it was being used for soil amendment and helping retain water more. But as more companies found out about it, diaper company reached out and said, "Hey, we want to start incorporating this into the diapers because it's super absorbent. It absorbs like 150 times its weight in water, so it's just like an incredibly absorptive material." So I just like to see some of these overlaps too. I don't know if there's any kind of partnership opportunity there, but I'll send you his information after.
I do. I'll connect him with our friends at Diaper, and I think they'll definitely want to have conversations there. They're always trying to innovate diapers. Like I have kids in diapers. I'll be quick on this, but they have these like new charcoal diapers. They're like these black diapers, and they kind of stand out. They're black, but they're like charcoal infused, and they're compostable. They're all that. And frankly, I thought it was kind of gimmicky. It's like, oh, black diaper. They gave me some, and so I started testing it. It's freaking incredible. Like the charcoal is supposed to like make the smell not as bad. It's incredible. It works so well. And it's like, oh man, it's cool to see people like innovating in this space, but not just innovating, they're innovating with sustainability in mind. This isn't just like, a diaper that makes things less stinky. It's also a diaper that's compostable. That makes things less stinky, which is awesome.
Yeah, those are the kinds of solutions we need to continue. And I love to see the kind of like flywheel effect of more products out there in the marketplace creates more awareness, more demand for more of that kind of innovation, better returns for people where it's not so much of a fringe thing. People are willing to pay for if it's a little more of a premium. I do
Yep.
also want to ask, fundraising is down in a down economy is a challenge many startups face. How are you navigating this hurdle, and what advice would you give others in similar situations?
Oh man, yeah, we raised a good amount of money when the economy when kind of investments were humming, and we expected to raise more money, and then suddenly we it wasn't happening, and the tide shifted for investors. Interest rates went up, investment, people's willingness to invest went way down, and we found ourselves in a tight spot. And one of the biggest things for any entrepreneur is just resilience. Like there is a way out. There is a way to pull it off. It was ugly, we barely pulled it off, by the skin of our teeth did we, survive. And still there's always challenges. Like one of our biggest clients just went bankrupt and they owed us a lot of money. And it's like now I'm feeling that and it's like, oh my gosh, we're out of the woods and then this crap happens. There's always going to be challenges. There's always going to be reasons to quit. There's always going to be reasons to fail. And doesn't mean that if you fail or you quit that something's wrong with you, whatever. Like I'm sure there's a time to throw in the towel, but I haven't found that time here. And I feel if Recyclops were to fail, I let so many people down. All these individual households who they care immensely about the environment, and they don't want to throw things away. They don't want to waste. And if Recyclops crashes and burns, there's thousands, tens of thousands of people who yeah, who are maybe even hundreds of thousands of people who are hit by that. And it's like, that's a heavy weight to say, no, I can't fail for them. And so I think that resilience and it is so key. The fundraising, we've said, hey, we got to be profitable. We got to be profitable. I think that we want to accelerate growth more at some point and probably bring in additional capital to help facilitate that. But right now, we want to make sure we're alive. We want to make sure we're here. We want to make sure that our mission lives on and that the impact lives on. And so finding a way to make sure that you can kind of turn the faucet on and get that investment money and turn it off. And then when you do raise money, it's a game. There's strategy involved. It's like dating. It's very much like dating where, you can do and say things that take what looks like it should be a perfect match and you sour the milk, and you gotta play the game and you gotta play it right and play it well. And it's hard, but if it was easy, everyone would do it.
I wanted to check real quick on timing just because I've got five or so more questions that I could ask, but I want to check on your timing too with how about how much time you have because I can cut it down to one or none depending on our timing here.
Let me see if I have another meeting, but I'm going to get someone else. I'm just going to take a quick look at what the meeting is, and how late I can be. Okay. I'm going to ask Paul from my team to take this. Yeah, I don't want to stay too long, but I can stay for a little bit. I'm going to be late to this meeting. I give too long-winded of responses. It's my downfall.
I really appreciate it because I think even a conversation I had with a fellow who his company called Brand Boss talks about the importance of really like the emotional engagement or just having that kind of like really getting to some of the like when hearing about your story, like just the kind of engagement that can come through that. And I think that's really important to help gain a listener's attention to find the resonance rather than just like the technicalities of what you're involved in, just having that kind of personalized story to it. So a balancing act of personal and professional or details that I think works well. But we just want to dial in on a couple like future vision, discovering needs if there's any partnerships, and then just kind of a closing question too. Yeah, and in the time that we have here, your goal is to work with more brands, expand across major U.S. metropolitan areas. What opportunities do you see for scaling, and how do partnerships with brands play a role in your expansion strategy?
Yeah, we definitely want to twofold. We want to identify brands that want to do these product take back programs, like the diaper program. We're working on one right now with a brand called Sparkle for feminine hygiene products, tampons and pads. Super exciting, super cool. We love those programs. The cool thing about these residential collection programs is the more of them that we do, the the less expensive they get, and also like the lower, like the carbon footprint per pickup goes way down. You have two pickups on a street. One of them's for tampons and pads. One of them's for diapers. They don't have to be the same house. My carbon footprint per pickup basically got cut in half by having those two on the same street. Like, that's pretty cool. So that's a big thing that that we want to push with. But then on the other side of enterprise is like the big, the big stuff. I think the construction industry, we're doing some work. We're starting to do some more work there, and huge opportunities. Same thing in the manufacturing industry, manufacturing waste. I think a lot of people don't think there's solutions. Like, oh no, this is just like, there's nothing we could do with that. There probably is something you could do with that. And so we're doing more and more in that space. I'm really excited about that. Love the residential side, want to do more. But right now, kind of the focus, or the direct consumer, like recycling desert residential side. But right now the focus is some of these big enterprise stuff to give us that springboard to do more on the other side.
Absolutely. Roger that. I'm going to keep on my kind of lightning round questions here. Looking forward, are there any new innovations or initiatives Recyclops is working on to enhance its landfill diversion programs?
A big piece, we're always looking for creative solutions to problems. We're doing a bunch of pilots right now with really difficult materials that are very large volumes. Thousands, tens of thousands of tons a year, and we're piloting kind of unique solutions to keep those out of the landfill. And not all of them can just be like, oh, it's just recycled. Like, no, if it could just be recycled, they would be. But like, what else can we do? How can we find another useful life for this, and kind of get creative and try and avoid any sort of incineration solutions, which can be the right solution at times, but really looking at where are there huge amounts of waste and what else could we do with that? And that's been a big thing for us. And we've seen, composting is underutilized in the world. And so see some really cool solutions that come with that.
Mm-hmm. As you work to grow Recyclops, are there any specific resources, partnerships, or expertise that could help accelerate your expansion efforts?
Yeah, I really want to get more into the multifamily housing, the apartment space, do more there. That opportunity is something that we started our business on, have spent a lot less energy on in recent years, partially because we found that the companies we talked to, they're like, oh, we have properties in all these locations, and we were just in Utah at the time. Now we're everywhere. So I kind of feel like we're ready there at some level, but don't have as many connections in that space that I'd like, and would love to do more in that space. The construction industry is another one where we're starting to really have some big partnerships, and want to do more and more there. So.
Roger. Well, hopefully anybody listening, and I'll consider too how to be able to tap into the network and recommend you to any of the builders, the multifamily home builders, or people who are connected in that network. In a closing question, curious, what excites you most about the future of Recyclops and the broader recycling industry?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that you're seeing this increase in awareness, that people care. And what's really actually cool for me is that people care, and that they're driving enterprise. That, like, you may think, oh, like an individual's recycling efforts are just a drop in the bucket and inconsequential. And you can make that argument. And I think there's arguments there. But when then that individual brings their neighbors in and gets that, then you start seeing real impact. And when they bring their company in, it is individuals that drive these corporate programs that divert millions of pounds per month. And that's where I see, you see these individuals, and that's what's exciting, that individuals are driving change in these big organizations. Every organization that you've ever looked at that you may think like, oh, I wish they did better. I wish they did. There are individuals in that organization who are trying to pull that off. And that's cool because it's working.
Yeah, the tipping point factor, the momentum, the snowball effect. You're part of it. I'm part of it. Any of the listeners who are involved in any kind of endeavor. So to say just thank you for being part of that, and for joining here today, sharing your insights with us. I'd love to see, and excited to see how Recyclops continues to innovate and expand its sustainability impact. And if there's anything else too that I didn't think to ask, I want to respect your time. I know you got another meeting to get into, but if there's anything else you want to mention too before end of the call here.
Yeah, I'll just mention one other thing. Oftentimes people question the viability of recycling. Does recycling matter? Is recycling worth it? And just a couple things to share on that. if we're looking at recycling simply as a tool to keep things out of landfills, we got lots of landfill space in the United States, for good or for bad. Like there's not, maybe in New York City, there's space concerns in Hawaii and San Francisco, but like most places, there aren't huge space constraints. Doesn't mean landfills aren't nasty. Go to one, cool. But the real impact of recycling is the fact that we are not having to extract those virgin materials from the earth. You think for every, plastic bottle that gets recycled, that's, some oil that didn't need to get drilled and piped. And you think about the environmental impact of even just making the drill, making the pipe, not even talking about what it's doing to our earth and, even laying like all of that. It's crazy the impact it has. Or you think about paper and what goes into making paper and trucking paper, and like the environmental impact of recycling is not landfills. It's what's not happening because you're recycling. And there are companies who are making things out of recycled products. They want to make more out of recycled products, and the way that are out of recycled, feedstock. And the way that we get there is we have more and more recycled feedstock, and the cost of recycled feedstock goes down, and it becomes easier for companies to use. And it's just that flywheel. And so like recycling does make an impact. And if you do put something in your bin, more than likely is getting recycled, and it's doing good. So, but we can do better.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. And I appreciate everything that you're doing with Recyclops and helping to spread this awareness, this important set of practices, recycling, and helping to create that more positive, more sustainable system for humans and for the earth.
No, I appreciate you and your work and spreading the good word. So,
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you. And